Darcy, Chapter 4. I ran towards Jupiter Hall with the wind at my back and an electric energy humming through my veins. It felt good to be doing something useful, having a plan to hold on to, even if it did mean we were giving up. That was the worst part about all of this, knowing that the heirs had won. The second we went home, we would be giving them exactly what they wanted, and that sickened me, like I'd swallowed poison. But they were too powerful. They could destroy us, and it didn't seem that there'd been any consequences for it, just like Astrum had been destroyed. Guilt stirred inside me along with the wave of sadness. Who was to say they hadn't been behind his death? Darius had run off just before he'd shown up dead, and the burning remains were a bit of a giveaway. It had to be someone who possessed the element of fire. Hadn't Diego said something about dragonfire? My thoughts scattered, and I hurried to rein them in onto the task at hand. I'd have to accept that we'd never discover the answers to all of the mysteries that surrounded us in Solaria, but it was better than ending up in a body bag before term was out. The campus grounds were eerily quiet as I jogged along the edge of the Wailing Wood, wanting to give the orb a wide berth. The ruddy roof tiles of Jupiter Hall peeked out above the next line of trees, and I hurried through them, circling around to the entrance. I adjusted the cap on my head, hoping it might offer me some semblance of disguise, if anyone did happen to be looking out of Jupiter Hall. I crept into the expansive hallway of marble pillars, and silence pressed in on me. I waited for a moment to be certain no one was here. 1 heartbeat, 2. I darted towards the stairs as quietly as I could, hurrying up to the next level and jogging towards Orion's office. I slowed to a near silent walk as I approached the door, just in case he wasn't attending the assembly and had decided to catch up on some work over the weekend. Our entire plan depended on him not being here, and even more so on there being stardust somewhere in his office. We deserve a bit of luck for once. Damn it, I should have read my horoscope this morning. I reached the door and gently pressed my ear to the wood, listening for any sounds beyond it. When I heard nothing, I tentatively turned the door handle. Locked, of course. I didn't have the lock-picking skills my sister had mastered, but I had another idea. I let a soft breeze coil between my fingertips, willing it into the keyhole as I tried to extend my will to the end of the wisp of air, reaching into the mechanism and praying I could somehow disable the lock. I wiggled my fingers, sensing my power building against the barrier of my skin, piling up and up. A loud bang ripped through the atmosphere, and my heart leapt violently. I swore between my teeth as a fist-sized hole was punched through the door by the power of air. The door handle clattered to the floor on the other side, and the door swung inward. I glanced up and down the corridor either side of me, my blood pounding with adrenaline. Okay, I seem to have gotten away with that. I crept inside, pushing the door shut despite the fact that it was damn obvious what had happened if anyone walked past. I didn't waste a second, fearing someone would have been alerted by the noise as I rushed across Orion's office. I circled his huge crescent-shaped desk and dropped down behind it, surveying my next challenge. I pulled at the drawers, but every one of them was locked. Why are you such a security freak, Professor? My heart thundered like mad as I snatched a letter opener from his desk and jammed it into the small gap in the wood. I pried with all my might, but the golden blade only bent in my palm. I stood up, backing away with a groan of frustration. I gazed at my predicament, a few seconds longer before figuring out I had no choice but to use my magic. Sorry, Orion, I muttered, lifting my hands and directing a powerful blast of air at the top drawer. A hole smashed through it, but this time, the entire front of the drawer fell off and clattered to pieces at my feet. Oops. I knelt down, tugging out the contents. Piles of papers, letters, leaflets. I tossed all of them over my shoulder as I hunted for the silk pouch he'd had on him that day he'd come out at our apartment. Oh man, I don't want to go back to the mortal world. But the heirs are such assholes, and I've already destroyed half of Orion's office. He'd kick me out anyway after he finds this mess. My fingers began to shake as I continued to rifle through the drawer, but there was nothing useful in it. I moved to the next drawer, unleashing my magic once again and accidentally tearing a great hole in one side of the desk. The contents poured out of the jagged gap and I crawled around, wading through it as I hunted for the pouch. Where are you? Come on, come on! My heart froze into compacted ice. As my fingers brushed silk, I pulled it out from beneath the large envelope and released a small squeal of joy. I did it! I'm always late. Get over it, washer. Orion's voice made my insides wither and die. I'll be there in 10 minutes. I have to send an email to the FIB first. Because they're breathing down my neck since last night, of course. Oh, holy shit. I looked left and right, the mess of the room unable to be concealed in such a short time frame, and the door was broken anyway. I couldn't do anything but stand up and get caught. Crap, crap, crap! The stardust! I sprang to my feet, my heart in my throat as I fumbled with the silk pouch. I poured some of the glittering black dust into my palm, the magic contained within it sending bolts of power into my veins. What the fuck? Orion bellowed. A second before the door flew open and slammed into the wall. He strode into the office, his eyes black as death itself, as they locked with mine. Horror, confusion, and pure rage poured from him in a torrent. His gaze darted from me to the stardust in my hand, and I knew I had half a second to act. I tossed it into the air, having absolutely no idea how to use the stuff, but what else could I do? I thought of Air Tower, desperate to get back to Tori so we could go back to Chicago, clutching onto that hope with all my might. A swirl of darkness curtained my vision, and Orion's office started to tumble away out of existence. He moved in a burst of speed before I knew it. Strong hands were locked around my wrists. I yelped in alarm as the full weight of him collided with me. Then, all at once, I was floating, gliding, traveling through an endless portal of stars, a million galaxies stretching out around me. A sucking sensation dragged my stomach and my vision was restored in a wave. I hit concrete on my back, and half a second later, a solid body landed on top of me, knocking the air from my lungs. I groaned as my bones ached all over my spine, pressing into a cold, hard plate of stone, and Orion weighing me down like another slab of concrete on top. The force of the collision made my head spin, and as Orion leaned back with the wind tugging at his hair and a fierce scowl fixed on his face, I wasn't even scared. I was just horribly, horribly angry with myself for failing Tori. "What the hell are you playing at?" Orion shouted at me. But I didn't answer. I just shoved his immense shoulders to try to get him off of me. He reared up in a moment of clarity, and I saw where we were. The huge plates of the turbine on top of Air Tower reached high above us as they spun at speed in the raging wind. Orion grabbed my hand, which was still locked tightly around the bag of stardust. "No!" I cried, throwing out my other hand to stop him. My voice was lost to the howling wind, but I'd felt it leave me with all the desperation of a dying animal. I needed that stardust, and we were screwed without it. Orion nearly had it from my grip, and panic sped through me, refusing to let go. A force like a propulsion jet engine left my body, and Orion flew off of me, spiraling backward through the air. I bolted upright. A gasp escaped me as he tumbled over the edge of the tower. I screamed, rolling to my knees, lurching upright to sprint after him. Oh, holy shit! I've killed Professor Orion! Before I reached the edge, he lunged back over it, propelled by his own magic, and I cursed my idiocy for worrying about him at all. I ran hard and as fast as I could towards the stairwell, using every ounce of energy I had in me. I crashed into the door, setting it flying open as I practically stumbled down the stairs. I just have to make it to Tori, throw this damn dust, click my ruby shoes like Dorothy, and fly us back to Chicago. There's no place like home. I just wish we had one of those. Orion sent a blast of air at my back, which flipped me around and slammed me into a wall. I struggled against the onslaught, desperate to lift my own hands and fight back, but he had them firmly pinned to my sides. He kicked the door shut at the top of the stone stairs and released a puff of relief. The droning noise of the turbines lessened, and I tried to swallow the hard lump in my throat as he approached. Well, that's one way to wake a guy up, huh? For half a second, I thought I sensed a lightness to his tone, a glitter of amusement in his eyes, maybe even a hint of pride. But all at once, it was gone, and I was totally certain I had imagined it. Orion strode down the steps with a demonic expression, not even a hint of mirth on his face. I wriggled against the ferocious power he'd wrapped around me, but it was no good. He had me completely immobilized. "Let me go," I demanded. Orion slowed to a halt in front of me, then casually flicked the cap from my head, so it tumbled down the stairs. My heart crumpled like paper in my chest, as he gave my hair a once-over, scrutinizing me, but not belittling me like the others had. He'd seen it last night, but this felt different. Like it was proof of my weakness, of how Seth had broken me and made me want to flee. And I could tell Orion saw all of that with one single look. Him not saying anything was somehow worse than the berating I kept expecting to burst from his mouth. "Get on with it then," I insisted, my fingers curling together around the stardust. I should have hidden some in my pocket when I had the chance. "Get on with what?" he asked coolly, his eyes narrowing. He was so close, and I could only think it was an attempt to intimidate me, which, for once, wasn't working, because what the hell did I have to lose right now? I was so far at the bottom of the food chain, I wasn't even worth eating. "Whatever it is you're going to try and punish me with, sir," I said breathlessly, but miraculously keeping my voice steady. "Detention? I don't care, because I won't be here. We're leaving." Orion stepped even nearer, and I couldn't do anything but stand there as he devoured the inches between us. "Is that what you were doing? Because it looked very much like you destroyed my office door, wrecked a custom-made desk, and then transported us to the top of Air Tower and threw me off the top of it, Miss Vega." His lips twitched, and for half a second I thought he might laugh. But it didn't seem like he was going to crack a joke like he did sometimes. If I hadn't had a hitchhiker, maybe I would have made it back to my room, I said, sensing my lower lip quivering. I didn't know if it was with anger or just completely distraught. All I knew was that it felt like I was falling apart. Orion eased off the air pressure holding me in place, and my shoulders drooped. "Hand it over." He held out his palm, and I clutched onto the pouch stubbornly. "Do you have any idea how much stardust costs? Dragonfire is the only way to make it. They literally have to melt down meteors for this stuff, so unless you want to go and pay Darius A. Crux for a bag, you're out of luck," he growled. And I pressed my lips together, not answering. That fun little trip to the top of the tower just cost the school a small fortune, so I hope you're pleased with yourself. "Obviously not," I muttered, glancing away from him. Tears burned at the back of my eyes, and I refused to blink, glaring at the wall beyond Orion and begging him to just go away, because I knew I was seconds from coming apart, and I didn't want anyone to be there when it happened. Orion reached out and his hand wrapped around mine, where it contained the stardust. The warmth of his palm sent heat skittering through my body, and I didn't know what to do as his hand remained there. Like he was going to take the stardust, but he still hadn't. He shifted closer, and my body physically reacted, my muscles coiling and my heart galloping into a desperate rhythm. When I finally looked at him and lifted my brows in a silent question, "What the hell are you doing, and why aren't I shoving you back?" His eyes scoured my face, then shifted to my neck, and I took a shallow breath. Is he seriously going to bite me after everything I've been through? One last snack before I'm gone? I thought you and your sister were made of tougher stuff. He forced his fingers in between mine, and a noise of frustration escaped me as he prized the pouch from my grip. You can go home, but you can't use this. Find another way. He released me, tucking the pouch into his pocket, and my dream stuttered and died. He reached out again, and I stilled entirely as his fingertips skimmed up my arm and charted a path to my neck. "Say it then," he murmured, and I frowned. My senses focused entirely on the line of fire his touch had painted across my skin. I was still unable to move, and I wasn't sure if I was keeping me in place or if I just wanted to be standing there now. "Say what?" I whispered. "That you give up your place at Zodiac Academy, that you weren't strong enough to stay, that you are not Fae." "I am," I started, but his glare silenced me. He was so close, almost nose to nose. His scent skipped across me, and the intoxicating aura he emitted seemed to slide through the walls of my skin, paralyzing me. Fae fight for their place in the world, Blue. They don't ever bow out of a fight. If the heirs have beaten you, then you're not one of us, and you never were. He stepped away, and the heat of his body vanished, replaced with cold wind blowing from the howling storm beyond the door. I stared at him, his words cutting me to ribbons more than I ever thought words could. If I leave, I'm not Fae. I'm weak. I never belonged here. I clenched my jaw, a deep well spilling over my chest, full of nothing but power. It pushed into every inch of my blood and swirled inside me like a hurricane. "I am Fae," I snarled, and Orion's brows arched as I pointed at him, a furious pit opening inside me. A smile spread onto his face, and he folded his arms. "Oh yeah? Prove it." Without another word, I turned away from him and ran down the steps. I took them two at a time, moving faster and faster, gaining momentum as I sprinted in the direction of my room. I'm not going to be beaten. I'm not going to bow out. I can't. It is not my nature, damn it. The moment I reached the door, I yanked it open and found Tori on my bed, surrounded by a pile of gold. "You did it!" I gasped, and she nodded, her eyes traveling over me as she hunted for the stardust. I shook my head in answer, pulling the door firmly shut behind us. "Tori, I tried to get my words out in order. How could I explain that Orion had made me see things so much clearer? That leaving didn't just feel like losing, it went entirely against who I was at my very core. And it must have gone against my sister's nature too. We were one and the same. Twins, who shared each other's blood. Changelings, sisters. Fae. "I think we should stay," I blurted, and she rose from the bed with wide eyes. "What?" "We're Fae, Tor. Fuck the heirs." A smile tugged at her mouth. "What's gotten into you?" Heat rolled up my spine, and I almost said Orion's gotten right under my skin and he knows how to pull my strings and to get me crazy, but instead I diverted to, Orion caught me and, well, he took the stardust back, obviously. And then he made me realize that we were running away, and we don't run away. We never have from anything. And no matter what the heirs have done, I don't want them to beat us. Not like this, at least. Not without a fight. She chewed on her lower lip, glancing down at all of the sparkling gold on the bed. "You're right, Darcy. It felt so good getting back at Darius, but shit. What? I asked, sensing something was wrong. Well, I kind of set his whole room on fire. A laugh ripped from her throat and infected me too. We started giggling like kids, like our whole world hadn't been torn out from under us just a few hours ago. And I didn't ever want the feeling to stop. Please tell me you at least covered your tracks, I said at last. Tori nodded, a wicked grin gripping her features. But I did steal this. He'll probably just think it melted with everything else, though. She scooped a silver knife from my pillow and my brows arched. It was beautiful, slightly curved and shone like the moon itself. Wow, I cooed, reaching out to brush my fingers over the hilt. Magic coiled in my veins and drew right to the edges of my skin, as if it wanted to unite with the blade. Tori tugged it away and dropped it into her satchel where it clinked against a handful of coins. There's something weird about it, she breathed, taking her hand out of the bag, as if she was struggling to part with the knife. The strange tugging feeling floated away from my body and I frowned. Do you think the teachers know students are keeping weapons? Tori shrugged. The heir's got 2 weeks in detention for nearly killing me, so I'm gonna guess they do, and that they don't care. My heart grew heavier again as I thought about the heirs. What are we going to do about them? The thought of seeing Seth made my skin crawl. I reached up to brush my fingers over my hair. It would take months for it to grow out enough to cover that bald patch, and years for it to reach the length it had been before. Son of a bitch. Tori noticed me touching my hair, and her eyes darkened. We're going to get them back for what they did. The strength in her voice brought a smile to my lips. But we're not trained well enough to face them with magic yet, so we'll have to be clever about it. I like the sound of that, I said, a spark of excitement and a little fear igniting my chest. How are we going to get at them? Tori gave me a conspiratorial look. We'll have to work out their weaknesses. We'll take every opportunity we get to mess with them. Like Darius's gold, I grinned, and she nodded keenly. We hit them in ways they'll never suspect. I breathed excitedly. But we can't ever get caught, Tori said seriously. Never. My heart thumped madly at the mere idea of it. The 4 of them were the deadliest beasts in the academy. If they figured out we were targeting them, who knew what fresh hell they'd conjure up to punish us? Tori stood, yawning. I'm gonna have to bite the bullet and go back to my room, shower, change. Hopefully, Nova won't deduct points from us, considering what happened last night, but I wouldn't put it past her either. I nodded. Not much we can do about it now either way. What are we gonna do with all of that? I gestured to the gold. Tori gazed at it for a moment, and then an idea glowed in her eyes. We keep it. If we ever need to run back to Chicago, we have it as a backup plan. Plus, I quite like knowing that we've got a big-ass bag of Darius's gold smuggled away. Good plan. So, where are we going to hide it? I glanced around my room, unsure if anywhere was safe from the heirs. If they ever caught wind of Tori stealing it, we were so dead. The voices carried out from the tower, and I realized we'd run out of time to do anything about it right now. The assembly was over. We can keep it here for a while, I said quickly, gathering up a handful and kneeling down to hide it under the bed. Tori helped me, stuffing the gold chalices, coins, and jewelry back into the sports bag and shoving it beneath the bed, as far in as we could push it. When we were done, Tori got to her feet, giving me an expression which was laced with concern. I just hope I can get back to Ignis' house before Darius does, because one of my biggest regrets leaving this place would have been missing the look on his face when he sees his rooms going up in smoke. A laugh escaped me as she opened the door and waved goodbye. I didn't miss the way she checked up and down the corridor as she went, and I knew it would be a while before we felt safe in these walls again. Perhaps we never really would. Not until we harnessed our powers. We'd been to the brink of hell and back with the heirs. They could take us there again if they wanted to, but we'd be ready this time. I locked my door and dropped onto my bed, releasing a slow breath as my heart rate finally settled. My atlas pinged and I picked it up, wondering if there was a way to turn off my Fae book notifications for good. You have a private email waiting for you, Darcy. I clicked on the banner with a frown and was taken to an inbox I didn't recognize. Lance. Location, Venus Library. Row, Espelon. Text, Earth, the power of growth. I read over the strange message, wondering if it had been intended for me. I didn't know anyone called Lance, but at least they weren't sending me hate mail, so I was counting it as a win. Sorry, who is this? I think you might have the wrong person. I hope this wasn't going to be another falling star situation. If only Astrom had been up front sooner, maybe... I didn't let myself finish that thought, my stomach nodding at the idea his death could have been avoided if we had acted differently. And now we'd decided to stay here. That meant we would be on campus with a murderer. I started to wonder if the mystery man would reply. Maybe he had gotten the wrong person after all. But then another message came in and my heart tripped over itself as I read. Lance. I think you know me better as the bourbon-drinking professor with a permanent scowl stamped on his face and a general air of failed dreams about him. Check out the book, Blue. You'll find it educational. P.S. Delete these messages immediately.